Tamara, when Unbounce got started, what was the landing page builder category like?
Honestly, it didn't even exist. So we had a group of six founders, and one of them, his name is Rick, he really had this problem himself. He was a marketer and he needed to build landing pages as part of his job. But every time he needed to build a landing page, he'd have to go to his IT team and ask them to scope out the piece of work. And what would come back is, yeah, we can do this, but it'll take 3 months or 6 months or maybe next quarter when we have time. And so, really, he set out to solve a problem that he had that no one else had solved yet, which is how can I build a landing page by myself as a marketer without relying on my IT team? And so, really, Unbounce was first to market with a do it yourself type of landing page builder.
And so the go to market message was this is you have an unsolved problem and we are now solving it for you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like you're being blocked by your teammates, essentially. Like you don't have a designer or a developer who can help you. Take that on yourself and become more empowered as a marketer.
And so the go to market motion then there was this is a product based differentiation. We're solving a problem that you couldn't solve before. And how what was what were the first years like? What was the success like?
Yeah, it was a very fast growing product. And so it was completely bootstrapped. There wasn't really any real funding to get them off the ground. But the appetite from the market was so strong. And they had really strong relationships with a few other people who had similar problems. And like Rand Fishkin from Moz became a huge early adopter, and that helped to grow Unbounce really quickly. And they just started asking for feedback. Hey, do you have this problem? Do you want to try my tool? One of the things they did really early on was try to align pricing with what they thought was one of the core value propositions, which was use a landing page to increase your return on ad spend. Most likely that means PPC. And so they connected it to your PPC spend and how much you were saving there. And it was quite affordable and quite scalable. And so really it just took off like crazy in those first few years. And at first, there is also very little competition. And so, really, if you were looking to become a more empowered marketer, Unbounce was the place that you would go to do that.
But then the competitors came.
Yes, that always happens. Someone has a great idea, someone else wants to copy it. So the competitors came in, and really we saw it in two different areas. First was people who also wanted to be a landing page builder themselves. So um, their core competencies, and they already knew what to build because we had built it for the past year or two. And so it was really quick for them to catch up to that core value proposition. We also then saw that other players, more like marketing automation tools, well, they wanted this feature as well. And so then they started building it in, not as a core competency, but as a feature that they offered. And so really we found that we actually had two whole categories of competitors: landing page builders, and then also marketing automation or marketing software.
And I guess also all the CMS, it's WordPress and all those guys.
Yeah, totally. And of course, that, the emergence of cloud and the emergence of all of these different no code web builders allowed you to really build a website quickly. And it's not that far away to think about, oh, well, I could also build a landing page on my website builder for sure.
So it's a classic case of leading with innovation, coming to the market with innovation is a great thing to have in the beginning. You gain a lot of traction, you address an actual pain,
Mhm.
but then at some point, this is getting commoditized.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. And one of our differentiators, even as we were fighting some of those competitors, was our thought leadership. And so, because we were innovative, because we were first to market and we had a real philosophy on this, I think that allowed us to grow even in quite a competitive space. And so, what is a landing page? How should you think about it? What are the best practices around building it? Even if we were fighting on a product feature level, that allowed us to stand out. But what happened was about 10 years into the market, we now have a plethora of competitors, and we're seeing that it has become completely commoditized. And really, people are fighting with price. And so it's a race to the bottom who's going to become the cheapest for the exact same amount of feature. And so we started to ask ourselves 10 years into Unbounce, what will the next 10 years of Unbounce look like? What will the next 10 years of this category look like? And what can we do now to stand apart, differentiate ourselves, and really build a really exciting future?
So you had invested in brand, you have a
Yes.
strong content engine in social media, blog, your own conference, building the brand. But even then, that wasn't enough to really keep the growth going because there was downward pressure on pricing
Yeah.
because features were not really that differentiated.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's also a changing market, right? So 10 years in, we were solving really a product or a technology challenge the first 10 years. But now, okay, there's so much SaaS software available. Software is more affordable. There's more businesses coming online. There's more offerings. And so we had to start to think about what can we do different. We also saw that landing pages as a core functionality were reaching really their peak market growth rate. And so we knew that there'd still be interest and demand in landing pages, but that demand was decreasing. And so we also had to start considering how can we plan for the future? What are the emerging customer problems that our customers have that we can start thinking about solving today to kind of expand that core value proposition that we offer and
Right.
grow our
So
market share?
the market reality changed. Customers'
Yes.
needs were changing, evolving, new
Yes.
technologies becoming available, and then you realize that uh, you need to change your strategy going forward.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So we were at a place where we felt like there was a few key competitors, and if you were to go to any of their websites or talk to any of their sales folks, you'd probably hear a really similar story. And so we weren't okay with that. We were like, we don't want to just ride out this category. We want to create the next version of this category. And so, how are we going to do that? Well, we need to really understand who our customers are, what their customer problems are, and what are our unique competencies as a business. And that then feeds into us choosing the right customer problems to solve that then would allow us to kind of carve off our own path away from the rest of the pack.
So tell me more about that. So you realized that you need to change, and
Mhm.
you were quite clear on what you needed to rely on, like your own expertise and what your who your customers are. So what all went on and
Mhm.
behind the scenes, and which different directions were considered?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, honestly, the first thing we did was recognize that we had become a bit of a catch all tool. So, really, any marketer could use us. So, we were everything to everyone. And we realized that in order to grow at the rate that we wanted to grow at, we needed to choose a bit of a specialization or a bit of a niche. And so, the first thing we did was really look at our customer segmentation and ask ourselves who are our best customers? What is the target market that we want to win in? And then how can we start to fortify that market? And what came out of that was we wanted to go back to our roots. When Rick and the other founders started, 10 years ago, it was 12 years ago at this point, they started to solve that small business marketer problem. And we said, we believe that the small business industry needs help. It's the cornerstone of our whole economy, but small businesses are at a disadvantage, especially when we look at technology. So the technology that is emerging around us, there's, optimization tools, there's building tools, there's now AI and machine learning. All of them were priced out of the small business market, meaning it was way too expensive for them to get in the game, or required things that small businesses didn't have. So, yeah, there are some really great optimization tools, but they require you to have 100,000 visitors to your landing page, not 500. Or they require you to have so many different variants that no small business has enough amount of time to actually build. And so we were seeing that small businesses couldn't afford the tools that were being built for them. They didn't have the time or the expertise even to engage with these tools. And we started to see some options that emerged. And of course, one of our core competencies was that being the first player in the market, we had 12 years of conversion data. We've facilitated almost 1.5 billion conversions. And so we started to ask ourselves, how could we supplement or augment this small business marketer to help give them that competitive advantage? And there's a couple ways you could do that. Obviously, one of them is through machine learning and artificial intelligence. But we also know that there's a lot of fear and anxiety from marketers and small businesses around, well, will it take over my job? How do I interact with it? I still want a level of control. So then we also said, well, okay, maybe we don't want to do AI and ML. Maybe we just want to build features that will allow the small business to control everything. More of the Shopify route, right? Or, hey, like, do we want to go back to this market? Maybe we want to step away from that market and do a different market. And so we really did consider all of the different options. But at the end of the day, we felt very passionate about doubling down on the SMB market. And we believed that we could innovate in the machine learning and AI space. And so we really took that big bet.
And your other competitors in the space, they took different routes. They made
That's
different
exactly it.
strategic choices.
Yeah, so one of our competitors, while we were really fortifying that kind of middle market SMB space, they started to move up market and actually, rather than simplifying technology, maybe complexifying technology, actually increasing those barriers that we were seeing some of our customers struggle with. Meanwhile, other competitors were going a bit broader with their message. So not just landing pages, but adding on other tools, like don't just build your landing page, but build your website as well. And so this was also a really great opportunity for us to double down on this area that we felt we could really own.
Hmm. And on the inside, when you were mm, discussing this, was this a easy, unanimous, obvious decision, or were wars being fought?
I wouldn't say wars, but I would not say that it was a yes, we're all in consensus around this. I think there's a couple things to it. When you think about machine learning and AI, people have anxiety around that. What does that mean? People also, it's difficult to build. So a lot of our questions were like, could we actually productionize this type of technology? It's one thing to say that we want to do it, it's one thing to prototype it, but can we actually get it in the hands of customers and make it work? And so what we did in order to really increase our confidence that this was the right strategy is we started to play around with this idea, and it went back years and years. So you mentioned our conference. At one of our conferences, we actually built a really cool little game called Marketer versus Machine, where we showed a couple different versions of a landing page, and we said, which version do you think is going to convert best? And we let all of the marketers at the conference say, and then we let the machine say. And what we saw was all of the marketers at the conference, it was about a 50-50 split. So you basically had an equal chance of flipping a coin as the marketer making an educated decision about which version of the variant would convert best. Meanwhile, the machine could predict it, I think, 80% of the time. And so we really saw that the power that machine learning had with landing pages. And honestly, then for the past 3-4 years, we've been, building our own R&D department. We've been experimenting with machine learning and trying to really understand the balance of where can we augment a small business marketer rather than automating them. And so when we looked around at what else was happening in the space and other tools, not just landing page builders, but other tools who are introducing ML and AI to the type of market we have, it's almost always within the context of automation. Like, let me take this off your plate. Let me replace this for you so that you can do something else entirely. We don't believe in that philosophy. We believe in, elevating the marketer's marketing IQ and then augmenting it with machine intelligence so that really you're working together as partners, almost like you have a whole other teammate to get more conversions. And so it was a series of experiments that we would do. And really at the end of the day, every little experiment we did would increase our internal confidence that A, we could build this technology and productionize it, but that also B, our customers and our market wanted this and that there was a demand for it.
Hmm. So now that you decided then to double down on the SMB market and AI as the technology.
Yeah.
So once the decision was made that that's how you're going to differentiate, that you're going to build towards, can you tell me how that impacted, your product strategy, a marketing strategy, overall strategic trade-offs, and how that impacted, the way you run the business?
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, one of the best things about having this strategy was that all of a sudden we had all of these different teams and stakeholders who were all aligned on the same strategy, which was really empowering. And you're starting to see that momentum grow versus before a little bit of anxiety of like, what direction should we go in? What should we do next? And so once all of those wars were fought, as you said, we're all on the same page and we have the same map that we're following. I think the biggest conversations we had, though, was almost that chicken and egg conversation of what comes first. Do we build the technology and then bring it out? Or to what level do we need to prime the market to even be responsive to this technology? And where we landed was that, we could have the best ML solution in the market, but if an SMB marketer is not ready to trust it, adopt it, and use it, we will never be successful. And so we actually decided to go the go-to-market front first while we then internally built the technology. So we really focused on our narrative design, on our positioning, on how we would connect machine learning and artificial intelligence to the SMB, understanding what the barriers to adoption would be, where those anxieties would come out, so that we could take all of those things into our product decisions, right? So understanding, oh, well, it's really stressful for me if a machine just makes a decision. Well, now we can build a feature that allows you to interact with the machine so that you feel like it's not making a decision on its own. But we can also build content and videos and messaging that helps give you that confidence and helps you understand how a machine works, so that by the time that feature is ready, you're already primed to use it.
So you mentioned the strategic narrative. So tell me, what kind of narrative did you land on? How do people get exposed to this narrative? How is your overall messaging? How are you serving that messaging to people in your sphere of influence?
Yeah. So one of the things we realized pretty early on into the strategy was that our vision for how we wanted to apply machine learning and AI actually went beyond landing pages. And so we started to think about not just how do we evolve our product, but how do we evolve our category? And really, at the end of the day, we decided we wanted to create a new category called conversion intelligence. And we believe that conversion intelligence is really the pairing of a marketer and a machine to increase conversions. And of course, landing pages are critical to that, but there's also other things that we can build that will help support that goal, with the landing page as like that core point of conversion. And so we started to define, what is conversion intelligence? What are the pillars of conversion intelligence? And that was really the narrative thread for us. So what happened? What was the big change in the world? How were our target market adapting to that change? And then how could conversion intelligence be a solution to how difficult that change was to overcome? An internal alignment, right, around, yep, that makes sense. We all buy into that. Validation with customers. Once we were ready to bring that narrative to market, we actually did a manifesto around conversion intelligence, which was, as we mentioned, Unbounce has always been known for that thought leadership. And so we wanted to make sure that this was a strong opinion about what the future of marketing looked like. So we built a manifesto post and we posted it on our website. And we started to share that on our social channels, at conferences that we spoke at. And then we started to sprinkle some of that into our positioning on our website. But really, it's a process. We can't just go one day from being, hey, we're a landing page builder, to the next day saying, we're now a conversion intelligence platform. We need to take people on that journey. And I would say that's been at least a year journey. We're really coming to the middle of that journey where we can start to be stronger in that message. And so now you'll see that what started as a manifesto post has now become our core positioning. And we're starting to launch features that are conversion intelligence features. And we're building whole conference talks that are about conversion intelligence, rather than just pulling in the threads of, the story behind conversion intelligence.
And is the idea between conversion intelligence also to build a category, or is just your, let's say, differentiation?
Honestly, we believe that we will be building a category. We believe that we need to evolve beyond landing pages, but that there isn't really another category in the market that's doing exactly what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. So classically, like, you can't be a category unless other players are also playing the same game. So are you somehow actively cultivating it, trying to bring others along in your ecosystem?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's two pieces to that. The first piece is we're trying to identify what other companies or individuals have the same philosophy as us, which is, let's not automate marketers, or let's not use ML and AI to automate. Let's use it to augment. And so we're definitely looking for who are those allies in this space who have complementary solutions. So our customers might want to buy our conversion intelligence tools and also their conversion intelligence tools, because pairing them together, they're going to get a better solution. So that's kind of what we're doing right now to help grow the narrative, better understand the market. But definitely down the line, like, we need to bring more people into the category. We believe that the exact same way we had fast followers, 10 years ago, we're going to have fast followers again. We already see people being very interested in what we are building and looking for ways to build them themselves. And we hope that by the time that the category becomes a bit larger, we are then the incumbent, larger, biggest player in that space.
So
But of course, category creation is a bit messy. It's like, who knows what's going to happen? At the end of the day, it's less about creating the category. For us, it's more about solving a customer problem, building differentiation, and telling a really strong narrative.
So how important to your strategy is that the category creation play works out?
I feel like the word category creation is so heavy because everyone has a different version of what that means. For me, like, I don't need an analyst to say conversion intelligence is a new category. I don't think that that is critical to our success. What I think is critical to our success is the market believing that this is a massive market problem and believing that conversion intelligence, or the promise behind conversion intelligence, which is I, as a marketer or as someone doing marketing responsibilities, can work with a machine to become smarter, grow smarter, and get more conversions. They need to buy into that philosophy for us to be successful and for this strategy to be successful.
Hmm. Uh, and what? So tell me more about the strategic bets you are
Mm-hmm.
making towards 10x,
Yeah.
10 things, and also what are you saying no to? What's the
Yeah.
trade-off?
That's great. So, one of our strategic bets actually came around doubling down on the idea of a value of a conversion. So, obviously, conversion intelligence is centered in conversions. As you know, the value of a landing page is you are able to direct traffic to your landing page rather than a generic page, which will increase your chance of conversion. And when we started to ask ourselves, what is the value of our product? It was the ability to foster and facilitate that conversion rather than just build a landing page. But when we looked
Mhm.
around at the market, we saw that almost everyone was charging their customers to build a landing page, not to get a conversion. And so we did over 2 years, honestly, of pricing research to understand what is the right value metric for our business, what is the right price point, how do we package that. And at the end of the day, we came to realize that the value metric should be a conversion, not a landing page. And so one of our big bets was actually changing our whole pricing model and moving away from charging based on the number of landing pages you created to the number of conversions that you are able to capture. And
Mm.
one of the major pushbacks that we hear is, well, you're penalizing me for my success. But it's actually the exact opposite. We're willing to risk our entire business model on the fact that we believe we can help you get successful. And we will only be successful and grow ourselves if we help you grow as a marketer and as a business. So that was a huge bet because A, we are risking our business model based on that. We can't grow unless we can really follow up on our claim that will help you get more conversions. And then also created some noise in the market that we definitely have to defend against. So I would say that's one of them. The other bet I would, yeah.
Let me ask you about the pricing
Yeah.
before we talk about other things. So uh, before you made the leap and actually change your pricing to that new model, I'm sure you modeled it behind the scenes and would see
Yes.
what the impact on revenue would be. So tell me about the fears that took place before you changed it, and then can you talk about the actual financial impact?
Yeah. I'll tell you what I can. So, one of the things we did is it's really hard to predict the future. And
Mhm.
let me think of the best way to say this. When you're charging based on landing page, we have a pretty good idea of how many landing pages a customer will build because we have 12 years of history of it and it hasn't
Yeah.
changed that much. We know the average number. When you think about conversions, the average number of conversions that a customer is getting is growing rapidly. And the amount of conversions that our tool facilitates is growing rapidly. And so that's actually harder to model because it's not a stable metric and it's a metric that's growing at a faster rate. And so we had to do a lot of like future predictions. So what we did was we looked back at the last 2 years of our business and we said, if conversion based pricing had been in place the past 2 years, what would our revenue have been compared to what our revenue was with our old pricing? And that allowed us to get a bit of a sensitivity around how risky it would have been. And to be honest, there were certainly levels of risk. The other piece was we had to identify all of the areas where the pricing might not work off or work well. So one of the examples, you've used our tool and used others, is conversion tracking is actually an optional thing. As a customer, I don't need to track my conversion. And so one
Hmm.
of our biggest risks going into this was, what if every single customer turns off conversion tracking the moment that we launch conversion-based pricing? And so
Yeah.
the biggest bet we had to take was on ourselves and our belief that a lot of our features actually require conversion tracking for us to understand what's happening with the conversion, to analyze it, and then to produce the machine learning features we need. So we needed to believe that customers would be so interested in those net new features that we would build that they would be willing to keep conversion tracking on in order to receive those features. But that was a huge bet in ourselves and on our future features that we would be delivering. So I would say that was probably one of the bigger risks that we were considering.
And so how did it play out?
Good so far. I would say it's an emerging story. It's been out for about a year now. We modeled it pretty accurately. For us, one of the big components was for the first year, just wanting to make sure that there was no negative business impact, which there wasn't, and then assessing openness to conversion being the value metric. And we've learned a ton about who's open and who's not open to that. How do we need to work better to help customers understand the value of a conversion so that they can then translate that into the value and price point of Unbounce? And then also, how can we help customers expand? And so as they get more conversions, they then move up the pricing tier, and then we're able to grow as they grow. And so I would say it's a work in progress, but overall, it's helped to strengthen our narrative and has led to generally positive business results.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more about the other bets you're making to compete and win.
Yeah. So second big bet that we're making is moving beyond landing pages. And this has been a real focus for us this year. So, and when I say moving beyond landing pages, I don't just mean having A/B testing or having an optimization tool like Smart Traffic. I really mean, how do we engage with customers when they're not even building a landing page? And the reason we believe this is important is, yes, the core focus is on that point of conversion on the landing page, but we recognize that there's a journey that a visitor takes before they get to the landing page, and then also a journey that the lead capture takes after the landing page. And so we wanted to say, the more that we can control or influence that whole conversion journey, the better that we can increase the point of conversion and increase that conversion rate. One of the first things that really interested us was the GPT-3 copy generation space. So we were already doing our own research internally and our own R&D around how can we generate higher converting copy. Our own research has found that copy has a significantly higher impact on conversion rate rather than design or layout of the page.
Yeah,
And so
even 2 to 1, right? 2 times
yes,
more important.
Sometimes even more important than that in some of our studies. And so we know that we have to solve this problem. GPT-3 comes out last year, and we see a ton of companies get access to it and start to build really unique things, particularly AI-powered copy generation. So we had things like Copy AI, Conversion AI, Snazzy, and we were seeing that not only were people interested in this space, but they were using it. One of our fears had always been, well, it seems kind of cool, but will customers and marketers actually want to create copy, right? But we're seeing these tools are growing huge every single month. They're getting customers to pay for it. They're creating copy. We're following along online, and there's a ton of interest. And so we actually acquired one of those companies.
Yeah, so this is aligned then with you guys are going for the SMB market. SMBs typically don't have in-house copywriters.
Yes.
If you're not a copywriter, putting words together can be hard.
Yes.
And so it seemed like a match. Or was there
100%.
anything else going on?
Yeah, so that was the main one. And one of the things that we heard time and time again from our customers and from our market research was, I just don't know where to start. And so what we love, so we acquired a company called Snazzy, and what we loved about them was it helps you with this idea of like, you never have to start from a blank page ever again. Yeah. We also recognize that right now, the technology is not going to create the best content you've ever seen every single time. It still requires that marketer's touch. But again, it goes back to that idea and that philosophy we have around, we're not trying to automate or replace the marketer. We're trying to augment them. So as a marketer or SMB, I come in, I add a few things like my keywords, my audience, whatever I want to write about. We're going to come up with a starting point for you. And then you can then put your own marketing IQ on top of that to polish things up. Also, when you think about everything we've also learned around conversion intelligence, and not just how to generate copy, but how to generate higher converting copy, we believe our secret sauce is applying our 12 years of conversion data, the 1.5 billion conversions that we've facilitated, and understanding what copy generates the highest conversions to help you, yes, solve the copy generation, but not just generate good copy, generate high converting copy, and help you create as many variants as possible, as quick as possible, because we know that that will lead to higher conversions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at now the next 10 years, what are some of the biggest risks that you perceive?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, the risk is always that technology evolves so quickly that what we're building today becomes almost redundant tomorrow. I think GPT-3 is a great example of that. It's like overnight, a whole category was created. And there's many companies that were trying to solve that problem with other AI models before that came out. So we can't think incrementally. We have to think large and innovative. We can't be thinking what's going to be cool a year from now. We have to be thinking what is the product going to look like 10 years from now so that we can leapfrog what others are doing. So that's one consideration. I'd also say just market evolution. I mean, COVID was a great example. We knew that these problems existed, that yes, it's getting harder and harder to compete online. SMBs are becoming more and more important to our economy. But then COVID threw everything out of whack, right? It's like all of a sudden you can't buy anything in person. Every single person has to go online. And we couldn't have predicted that. And so market change is just so unpredictable that we're trying to understand how we can predict where the market will grow without actually knowing how the market will grow. So you kind of have to make a couple of different assumptions and understand how you're going to hedge against each of those different assumptions.
And are you also thinking about moats? Because
Yeah.
the competitors, more are gonna come. That's inevitable. Every feature you build, good chance they're gonna try to replicate it. So, what are you doing to build moats?
Yeah. I mean, first, we're recognizing that we need to build moats. And then we're trying to build a few strong moats that we can own rather than taking a few, like a ton of large bets. And so we truly believe, and I truly believe as a product marketer, that like if you're building for a very specific audience and solving a very specific problem, it's going to be very hard for anyone else to do that exact same thing, right? And so other people can say that they have our value, but they don't have our exact value for our market. So we're doubling down in our target market, and we want to be the best solution for small to mid-sized businesses. We're also doubling down on one thing that no one can compete with, which is our conversion data. We have been around the longest. We've facilitated more than 1.5 billion conversions. We're growing every single day. And all of the features we're building, even across all of our products beyond landing pages, are leveraging that data set, and we're building models off that data set. And so, yes, you could be a customer with us, you could leave tomorrow, but you're not going to be able to get your history of conversion data or all of our entire customer base history of conversion data to power you. And we believe that that data will be the biggest moat that we can build.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is awesome.